Hello, farmers, and welcome to another episode of The Harvest Season. My name is Al.
My name is Kevin.
Hello, my name is Name.
And we are here today to talk about cottagecore games. Woo!
Woo!
Yeah.
Don't sound so excited, Kevin.
I didn't match it. I did not match it this time.
Kevin, you can do whatever you want. You normally do.
Well, you're right about that.
So, welcome to first-time guest Nami.
Hello. Yeah, it's me. People probably know who I am, but if not, I'm Name the Nerd from small town Missouri.
Cool. So we're gonna. I didn't really rehearse in my head what I was going to say here, but we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about the use of cultures, specifically different cultures from the one that developers are in their video games when it's appropriate, etc., etc. There's a lot to talk about there, but that's what we're going to talk about. And I thought that Nami would be a good person to get on to chat about this, because Nami, you are what is the correct terminology that you would use?
Well, I think the term that people use on the internet right now is Native American. I've grown up in a family of Native Americans that call themselves Indians, but I am a member of the Comanche tribe, if you want to get particular.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so that's a tribe. Cool. I do know the Comanche. I just didn't know that was your tribe. Very cool.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that was getting particular. I would say that would be like actually saying what you are, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I've got my ID card in my wallet. We have our own, thingamabobs. So
I'm sure we'll get into this discussion, but like, yeah, because quite often we can talk about Native American like it is one, homogenous group.
Yeah, one nebulous thing. Yeah,
which it has never been.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm sure we'll get into that discussion later on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll save it for then.
We've got plenty to talk about before then. Before that, we have a bunch of news. Apparently, everybody was announcing release dates this week. But before that, Nami, what have you been up to?
Well, that is, a big question. I have. I'm a kids librarian, and so I do all kinds of programs and stuff. I read to the little 5-year-olds, but I also do video game programs with teenagers. So right now at work, it's all been about getting summer reading programs ready to go. Some people are like, "What, summer? It's February." But they are
planning needs to happen.
Yeah, they're due in the middle of March. We got to book the performers. We got to decide what we're doing. So that has been occupying a lot of my brain space. But in terms of like my gaming to-do list, every day around Pokemon Day, which is very close at the time of recording, since the 25th anniversary, I've been going back to an old game and doing like kind of the post-game content that I never was able to do. So for the 25th anniversary, I got to credits in Stadium 1. And then last year, I got to credits in Stadium 2. And so this year, I'm preparing to do the Battle Frontier in Emerald, which I've never done before. So that means like breeding a team and EV training it all in Generation 3 of Pokemon. And it is, I'm not looking forward to it necessarily, but I'm very excited to do it because it's like bucket list for me. So
I'm not going to judge you is all I'm going to say.
No. I'm not judging you, but boy, that hurts just to hear. Good luck.
We'll see where I am 6 months from now. Yeah.
Cool, Kevin. What have you been up to?
I have been up to a lot of the same. My life is just dominated by battle passes and dailies and so on. I play Unite. I play Snap. I play Snap, which has hurt me, by the way. They've got a lot of good variants and dropped a little money. That said, though, this week my brother Calvin introduced me to a new mobile game. I've become more and more of a mobile gamer, much to my own dismay. It is called the Battle Cats. Have either of you heard of this?
I have never heard of this.
Battle Cats?
The Battle Cats with an S, plural.
Mm.
Oh my word, this looks so cute.
You're looking it up, right? Okay. So it is made by a company called Ponos, which had not been familiar with, but apparently they have a wide assortment of titles using these cats. There's like the burglar cats, I think. They even had one for the 3DS, like a match 3 puzzle game using these cats. They have a handful of games, so they're pretty prolific. I hadn't heard of them. But anyways, so the Battle Cats is it's essentially tower defense, but like you're trying to take down their tower, they're trying to take down yours. It's just 2D, left, right, whatever. You're just generating units at a certain amount of rate or whatever. And I love tower defense games, so like naturally I was inclined. But the real seller is, as you said, Al, the art style, which is like cartoon. I don't know. If you guys have played or if anyone's familiar with Undertale, there's a character called the Annoying Dog, and it looks a lot like that. So it's just like black and white cats, and the cats are very cartoony and goofy. You have UFO cats, dragon cats, gross cats, which has just like ginormously long legs. You have Thor cat. And it's a gotcha game, so you pull for cats, and they become your units for your team and your little missions. It's fun, it's addictive, it has an energy system, so it actually manages to keep my addiction in check. But yeah, it's really fun. And I especially took notice because they had a crossover with Street Fighter, actually.
What?
Yeah, not only did they have cats modeled after some of the villains, if people know what M. Bison looks like, he has like a cape and an evil dictator hat. So they gave a cat an M. Bison outfit. But you could also just get the characters themselves. My brother pulled like Ryu and M. Bison himself. So he has these goofy, cartoony cats, and then he'll summon like Ryu, who's doing Hadokens. The game is chaotic and goofy and hilarious and a lot of fun. So it has taken over my week largely. It's actually cut into my snap time, which is crazy. But yeah, aside from that, just the usual. What about you, Al? What have you been up to?
Well, I have finished my Pokemon Scarlet Professor Oak challenge. Woo! I'm done.
Freedom!
Congratulations.
It was kind of ridiculous. So it took me, so I got 60 hours to get to the first gym. So I was catching 355 Pokemon, 60 hours. And wow. I think, let me just double check. I think it was like 72 or something for the rest of the game. So like another 12 hours.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's quite insane. Realistically, the only thing that actually took me time, well, there are two things that took most of that time up was the cutscenes. So, so many cutscenes in the gyms. Like that took about half of the total time I think left was just the talking, which I have, what's it called? The split pad. So I just stuck on the turbo button for that and get through all that nonsense. And the other thing that took a surprising amount of time was there after you hit credits, you can unlock the 5-star raids, and when you've got the 5-star raids unlocked, there are 3 Pokemon that you can only get at that point, and that's Caesar, Finneon, no, not Finneon. What's it called?
Finizen.
Palafin.
Yeah.
No, the other one, Palafin. Yeah, Finizen you can get before Palafin. And Slowking. And that took me a surprising amount. It took me about 3 days to get those 3 Pokemon in raids, because obviously you're having to go around all of your raids and check if they're there. Then you actually have to defeat the raid and blah, 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 blah. So like that took a lot of time. But I was like, I could just skip this bit, but then like I've not actually fully completed it. So I may as well just like do this last bit. Whew, that was quite a lot of work. And then I went back to Violet and caught all the exclusives and sent them over and have the shiny charm. So I am done with that.
Wow.
So I'm now going to put myself down to significantly less amount of time playing in that game. Maybe one day a week, get a shiny or a raid event if there's a raid event on that week.
You say that, but Pokemon Day is Monday, and then you'll be right back in.
I mean, I don't think even the most optimistic person assumes that the DLC will be announced and released on Monday, right? Like that would be quite insane.
It doesn't have to be the DLC; it could be just something else, small update.
it's not gonna, whatever it is, it's not gonna be more than a couple hours work, right? Let's be honest. So there's that. And then I picked up Mario Rabbids Spark of Hope. So that's the second one. And I was like, let's get this game done. Because I played a wee bit of it when it came out, and then I got distracted by a bunch of other things because I think it came out a few weeks before Pokemon did. And this game really frustrates me because the battles are so much fun. And I think the battles in this game are better than the previous one. I wasn't hugely excited about the lack of the grid system in this one, but I think it actually works really well. I think it's really fun. It gives you more different possibilities, more ways to do things, which is good fun. But then they padded out the game with all this ridiculous like exploration nonsense between the battles that just is not fun. There's like random pointless puzzles. You have to like figure out where you're going to get. It's like the first game, I found that a bit annoying, but it was mostly just like one of these maps that like the 2D Mario games have, like World or whatever, where you would just like kind of walk along the map. And it was like, this is kind of pointless, but whatever. It's nice and quick. You're just basically walking through, catching some coins and then going to the next battle. But this one, there's full on like exploration things, and you have to go through these caves and figure out how to get out of the cave, and you have to figure out how to get to the top of a lighthouse, and you have to, and it's just like, I do not care. I didn't buy this game to be a platformer or an exploration. This is not what I'm looking for in this game. And everything that it does outside of the battles is not fun. It's badly done. And therefore, I have stopped. I'm not finishing that game because I'm not enjoying myself outside of the battles.
That's so weird because the first game was so well done. Like,
yeah,
I'm surprised they bungled it up like that. I haven't heard much or played that.
I think
that's disappointing.
I think it might depend on who you are, and maybe some people enjoy that. I don't know. There must be a reason that they've added so much more between the battles. But like personally, I would have preferred if they'd taken the first one, put on the battle system for the second one, and then removed all those bit between the battles. Just give me a list. Just let me play the battles. I'm not buying this game to explore. I'm playing it to play these battles.
That is not just you. That is like the game. That's what they're selling you. And yeah, it's weird that they fill it up with so much more.
Absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
So I played for another maybe like 3 hours or something. So I've put in almost 10 hours in that game, and I think that's enough to say that I do not. The battles are good, but they're not good enough to make me want to power through the absolute dreadfulness that is everything else. So I put that back down again, and I'm selling the game. The other thing that I've been then picked up, I only picked that up today, so I've not done a huge amount of it, but I'm enjoying it so far, is Hyrule Warriors. Oh, what's this one called? Calamity.
Age of Calamity.
The Breath of the Wild one? Oh,
Yes.
I thought the original
Yes.
one.
No.
Oh.
No, I like to play the newest game of something, and then it means that I never enjoy playing the older ones because they're not as good.
That might not be the case here.
We'll see. I'm enjoying it. Obviously, the battle system is not the same as in Breath of the Wild, but it almost feels like they're trying to make it very similar. So, like, you have all of the extra abilities, like your magnesis and your ice thing or whatever they're called, but they work differently. And obviously, you're doing it in like high-paced combat rather than using it to solve puzzles. And so it's fun, but it's also a little bit weird, and I think it might confuse me going into Tears of the Kingdom because it's that weird kind of combination of kind of similar but also kind of different in that way.
It looks so much like Breath of the Wild.
It does, yeah.
Down to the menu UI and the sound effects and the music. They did a great job making it seem like a seamless step into this game from Breath of the Wild. So yeah, I hope that you don't go through whiplash with Tears of the Kingdom because props to them for it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'll go into Tears of the Kingdom and be like, no, this is the combat I prefer because I do it. I'm not enjoying it as much as I enjoy Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Partly because I think this game wants to just throw you into battles, and it does that straight away. It's like, hey, here's a battle, go, and I like that. But then it also then puts in some of the exploration side of things that Breath of the Wild had, but not fully featured. Obviously, it's like not an open world game like that, so it just kind of feels like those are kind of tacked on. But unlike Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope, those are really short, right? So you're like, oh, you need to get to this next bit. Okay, run to it. That's fine. But as soon as you've finished all of the battles within that chapter, you then back to a menu and you can select the next chapter and you're immediately there. That's the bit that Mario Rabbids didn't do, which it should have done. Minimize the extra bits between what we're actually there for, right? So I'm enjoying that so far.
Good. I like
We'll
the
see how it
first
goes.
Hyrule Warriors better.
I've nearly finished the first chapter.
It's a real...
So
Yeah, well,
We'll see
I
how
mean,
that
yeah,
goes.
the Age of Calamity was fine, but just the original Hyrule Warriors was a real love letter to the Zelda series, which is really fun.
interesting.
But I'm glad you're enjoying
So yeah,
it so far.
I think that's me. Not played any Snap. Played a little bit of Go. That's about it. That's about it. I mentioned 3 big games there. Shall we talk about some news?
Should
Yeah,
we?
let's do it.
So, Research Story is now out in early access. That's not news. We already knew that was coming, but they have also released their early access roadmap. So they've listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big updates coming over the time. It's obviously a roadmap without any dates, because of course that's a sensible thing to do.
Yeah. I'd like at least an estimate on my roadmaps personally. Like, I mean, I'm not like trying to hold them to anything or be disappointed. I'm saying this just in general, not specifically about this game, but yeah, I don't know. I just like to have some ballpark of idea of what they estimate, because just the list of things they want to do, yeah, I don't know. That could take a while.
I mean, I will say that they have said that they expect their early access to take about 6 months to a year. So presumably at this point in time, they're expecting all of those 5 updates to be finished within a year's time. It's not going to happen, but that's what they're expecting at this point.
It feels like in our little corner of the video games world in the cottage core, it feels like this happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And I think everyone just tries to add too much into their games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, just looking at, again, I haven't touched Research Story or don't have anything against them, but they have the romance stuff. Is that, oh, do we always need the romance? I don't know. But anyways, that's just me.
Research Story
screaming at the clouds.
specifically as a game does feel like it doesn't need romance, right? Like it's
Right.
a game where you're a researcher and the focus is on
Yeah.
researching things. Not to say
Thank
that
you.
researchers can't have relationships. I'm not saying you can't have a relationship, Cody. But, like it does feel like the focus is on, like when you're doing something like Stardew or Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons, like the focus is on this. You're just living a life. Right? There's no like
Yeah.
specific thing. And then other ones,
There's
it's like,
no
oh, we're focusing
goal.
on, like, if you imagine if like Farming Simulator that actually had romance in it, that would be weird because the focus is on running a big commercial farm. So yeah, I agree with you. This feels a bit weird to have that.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, but I mean, good luck to Research Story. Regardless, they have a Discord. You can join it if you want to help with their growth and whatnot. It is nice to see them interacting with the community like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. I will say, just because we were talking about like dates and stuff like that, just to give you an idea, Sunhaven, which we're about to talk about, they came into early access in June 2021, and they said that their early access would be 6 months long. So,
Look,
6 months, 2 years, close enough.
Sometimes you just got to put asterisks over your dates.
That's
There
why you
is
don't give a date. This is my opinion. Like Kevin wants dates. I say don't give a date. Just do what you do.
give a date and hold your, not a specific date, but like if you realize it's getting too big, then cut down. That's my opinion. Look, this is the genre with Re-Legend in it. Okay, like
Hey,
Oh,
they're out now.
dear.
They've released now, right? They're no
have you played it yourself? Is it true? Is it true?
Is it true that it's out?
Yes. Is it not all just
It's true that you can
big-
download the game. I haven't actually tried to play it.
for all we know?
But it's no Mineko. Mineko has been
No.
longer.
Has Mineko been longer?
Oh yeah. There were only
No.
two. There were only on the first episode. There were only 2 games that we announced that hadn't been released last year. One of them was Re-Legend, and one of them is Mineko. Mineko hasn't come out yet.
When was Mineko's first announcement?
2018.
Oh, okay, never mind. Take it all back. But Mineko will be worth it though.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Echo's going to be a
No.
better game than Relegend. I don't think anybody would be arguing
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, all right. Well, let's talk about the other game with
Yeah, so
an update with
Sunhaven,
questionable dates.
so they have announced their 1.0 release date. So their 0.8 update. I don't know why they're doing whatever. Right. Their next pre 1.0 release is out, and that adds. Oh, look, it adds romance.
No.
And so that's out now, and the 1.0 release date is currently scheduled to release on the 10th of March, which is only like 2 weeks away.
That's not bad.
No.
That seems
Yeah, I
very
will
quick
say-
between the two releases.
I will say, looking at this art style for this game, how could it not have a romance simulator? This seems like it's designed for it.
By
Yeah.
which you mean it's knocking off Stardew? Yes.
It's Stardew but with magic, right? That's what this one
Yeah,
is.
it's like it's a higher fantasy.
Yeah.
I will say I think this has better pixel art quality than Stardew, and it's quite nice. But
Oh, for sure.
It's so I would say it depends what you mean. It has higher resolution on everything, right? Like it's less pixely.
I would say it's more complex
Yeah.
designs.
I mean, like, well, like I recognize like every. I judge pixel art by like what they do in their limitations, right? Because there's like you look back at older NES games or whatever, they have fantastic pixel art, like some of those Final Fantasy games or whatever. Anyways, but I just look at like the octopus that you see on the Steam page. They have like this giant octopus with like stuff inside it. That is great design right there. I don't think Stardew has anything as nicely designed as that.
Interesting.
But regardless, that's just a completely subjective opinion here.
I certainly don't. I certainly look at this game and think it looks nice, right? It's not like one of these art styles where you're like, oh, they wanted to make a game and they didn't really know how to make it look good. Like it does look good, absolutely. But I think that it is obviously higher resolution, and in some you could definitely argue it looks better than Stardew. But I still think that Stardew looks really nice. It's just
Stardew's
it's
fine. Stardew's
different.
not bad. I mean, clearly, yeah, but okay. I mean, yeah, like
look,
I said, that's
you
just a
can write a
personal
lion
opinion.
in this one, right?
Well, there you go. There's a crab house with a big crab on it. Stardew doesn't have one of those.
That's very true. But can you turn your kids into doves in this game?
Ouch.
See, you know what? I'd rather games copy that than the romance in every game. But I guess you need the romance to have kids first. Well, no,
That's true.
just do it to random
Just turn,
kids.
yeah, random people. I don't like you in the game. I'm going to turn you into a dove. So the other thing is obviously they've still got their Nintendo Switch release to come. That is coming soon. They haven't really. It's a bit cryptic what they've said. They're like, we're waiting on Nintendo. But my question with that is like, are you waiting on Nintendo because you've you applied for it to go in and therefore it's all ready and you just need Nintendo to approve it? Or are they waiting on something else from Nintendo? Like they don't actively say we have put in approval for this to go in the store, right? So I'm a bit like, what exactly are they saying here? I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, but again, another cornerstone of our genre, the Switch tax, always longer releases, delayed releases on that.
Yeah. Well, at least now I have a Steam Deck, so I can stop waiting for the Switch release.
yeah, you're not wrong.
Next, we have another release date because, as I said, this is the release date episode. The next one is we have a release date for Terra Nil. So this is the game where you're turning a wasteland into a luscious green land and then leaving it untouched by humans. This one is releasing on the 28th of March.
Busy month.
This game, I believe it was Cody was on the first time this was discussed. She was so hyped about it. I don't know. Her excitement has made me more excited about this game. Terraforming is a cool concept. And just looking at that, turning a empty plot of dirt into a vibrant forest or ocean, riverfront, whatever, that's pretty cool. I'll be excited. I will probably give this a whirl. to PC and Netflix.
So there's the interesting thing. I don't think we had any idea that it was coming to presumably mobile devices. They don't actually give the details, but as far as I know, Netflix are only doing games on mobile devices. I don't think we had any indication that this was coming to mobile. And yeah, suddenly they're like, oh, hey, we're coming out on the 28th, also on Netflix. And you're like, oh, okay.
Thank you for that.
Right, fine. I guess that's a thing.
Yep.
I mean, Netflix are doing well with choosing games for their service, I think.
I
so far.
guess I don't have Netflix at all, so I don't know.
Yeah, so I know that they have had some good ones. They had, I believe, Spiritfarer.
Oh, that is a good one then. Good for them.
I believe so.
Well,
there was also
Spiritfarer
like
in
one.
this. Yeah.
Oh, they had the Ninja Turtles game.
Oh, yep, that's a good
Oh,
one.
wow.
Yeah, okay, no, somebody there knows what they're doing.
They do. They really do. There was something else as well that was like a traditional game that people really liked, and I can't remember what it was. What was it?
Oh wow, they have a lot of games. I'm just looking through the list.
Into the Breach. That's the other one. That's like a
Into the
game.
Breach. That's a dope game.
Yeah. Obviously, they have some that are based on
Stranger
Things games, which apparently the Stranger Things game is very good.
Huh?
They've got an exploding kit. They got exploding kittens on it.
Oh, there you go. I'm just.
There's quite a lot of games. Games.
Some of them look like the fake mobile ad games that you'd see. But
they do.
Some of them are legit games. Maybe it's just something about the icon.
They launched.
The square
I think they launched
icon.
it with all those games. All those really like, oh, we have like 20 games, and you're like, yeah, they're all terrible. And then they finally got some money to actually buy some good games.
Oh, Spiritfarer, that icon makes me so happy. Stella just being happy.
Nami, have you played Spiritfarer yet?
I gotta be honest, no.
Well, thank you for
You should
coming
play
on
it.
the podcast.
Yeah, we'll see you
It
around.
was a pleasure having you.
So I am curious, like this, the Netflix games, are those like, do you download them or are they cloud?
Yeah, so
Like-
so they're just standard mobile games, but when you download the game, you then have to log into Netflix to prove you have a subscription.
Okay.
But yeah, it is like a standard game that you download. It's not cloud gaming or anything like that.
It's a neat idea.
Neat.
But anyways, one thing I do want to say more about Terra Nil. They're donating a portion of their profits from Steam, not Netflix apparently, to the Endangered Wildlife Trust. So good for them, putting their money where their mouth is. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
I suspect the Netflix money helped with that, right? Because then you know you've got a certain amount of money you can put. It's clever.
Yeah.
Clever.
Yeah, I probably. So thank you, Netflix, I guess. In a weird way.
But yeah, so that's good. And we got our Spiritfarer reference in for the Slack. They love when.
There you go.
Next we have. I really hope I can remember how to. I think it's Chia.
That's what I'd assume.
That's what I would guess.
This is the game that's based in New Caledonia. We have a release date for this game as well. This is coming out on the 21st of March. I should have done these in date order, shouldn't I? Oh well. This is releasing on Epic Games and on PlayStation, both PS4 and PS5, and it's going to be included in the PlayStation Plus Extra. So if you subscribe to PlayStation Plus Extra, you get the game for free.
So, first of all, for people who might not be aware, New Caledonia is a real place.
Do people not know that was a real place?
Just to be sure. I don't know. Like, it's, at least here in the U.S., New Caledonia isn't a place you hear it come up too often.
Well, sure. It's not like something that comes up in everyday conversation.
Yeah.
But it's like when I heard this, when I first saw this game and I saw it was based in New Caledonia, I'm like, oh yeah,
Look,
okay, cool. It's not something I talk
had
about
to
very
look
often,
it
but I
up.
knew it existed.
I saw it and it said, that sounds like a country. And I looked it up and it's like, oh yeah, that is a country. I didn't know, okay. So I'm looking at this trailer. I don't know if any of this is gameplay. So I don't like
It
that.
looks beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, but again,
looks
I don't. If it's a pre-rendered cutscene type footage, that would look good. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because that's always a big asterisk for any trailer, in my opinion, at least in video games. I like to see actual gameplay. I don't know if we're actually seeing any here. But the concept is cool. They are really going for, culture, right? We're a specific culture out there. We've got non-white folks as the lead, and
Hey
mostly
Kevin.
cat.
Yes. Hey Kevin, this
Yeah.
is in my list. It's in my list for discussion in the main topic.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
Well, look, I'm just saying. Okay. But anyways, I don't even know what the game's supposed to be playing like, to be honest.
I think it's more of a kind of like exploration game, but there's no like combat or anything. I guess it kind of is more actiony. Did you ever play, what's it called? Oh my word, why am I so bad with names sometimes? The Alba. I keep getting that one messed up because there's a Scots word which is spelled the same as the Spanish name, but it's said differently, right?
Oh,
Alba.
the wildlife game?
Alba,
No, I
the
didn't
wildlife
play.
game.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's meant
probably
to
a
be
good
kind
comparison.
of like that, but without the, like, obviously you're not taking pictures, you are instead going around, and I think the idea is that you're meant to be caring for animals.
Okay, so looking at the YouTube trailer, there's a blurb here. Face off against your foes in open encounters where your creativity is the key to victory. Transform into any of the over 30 animals or hundreds of objects at your
Yes.
disposal. Uncover your secrets and make new friends as your jam on your fully playable ukulele in this tropical adventure. That sounds cool. I don't see that in this trailer, really, or at least in terms of the gameplay. Like, I see where they're hinting at animals and transforming, but I don't know how that's utilized in the game. But
Yeah, I think it's meant to be like a puzzle thing. So you
Okay.
might need to use certain animals to get certain places
Okay.
and stuff like that.
it says
But
foes.
yeah, I forgot about that.
It says foes. That's
It does.
interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe there is combat then that I didn't
don't know.
realize.
March.
Oh, I see the ukulele in the very last shot of this trailer.
The
right before
ukulele is prominent.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
a rhythm game, I believe, with that
I mean,
Wow.
ukulele.
regardless, we're gonna find out soon because that's
Just a few
Yeah.
weeks.
March
it's around the bend.
21st, 2023.
Very cool.
Epic Game Store, PS4 and PS5.
And yeah, this game will 100% come up in our main conversation about cultures and video games. And it's perfect timing.
Yeah. Okay.
Next, we have technically a release date, but a release date for an update. So this is The Wandering Village. So this is where you have a farming. It's basically a farming life sim, but you're on the back of a big creature. So they have added, this update is adding gamepad support and therefore Steam Deck compatibility and a bunch of other stuff that I'm not really going to talk about because that's all I really care about. Steam Deck guy over here.
Yeah, that's the big one, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. This is my first time looking at the game, and it looks very impressive. Like, I really like this shot of the big creature walking through. And as I understand it, that's not like the typical gameplay, but I still like looking at it.
I mean, it's a cool. I haven't heard or played anything of this game. I'm just wondering, like, does the creature does that affect your village?
I believe
would
it does
assume
affect
so.
things, yeah.
Okay. Well,
So I believe that your creature can get into battles with other creatures, for example. and
Oh
that can
yes,
affect
yes,
things.
yeah. That does sound familiar. It's a very cool concept. It's interesting because like the art of the world, I like the bigger world where you see the creature is like detailed, painted, lovely art style, and then when you zoom in on the village, you get like little cartoony people. They're cute. It's a fun juxtaposition. I just think that's a neat idea to do it. Yeah, no, it looks cool. Yay, we get gamepad. I feel like I don't play games unless they get. I'd say that I've done it before, but I really would like to play every game with a gamepad. I don't like the keyboard.
And next we have a brand new game announcement. Farming Simulator 23 is releasing this May.
This was very funny to me.
It is funny just in general, right? Like, I find it really funny that they're still doing this 2 releases of Farming Simulator. So that one year they release the main game that comes out on PC and PlayStation and Xbox, and then the next year they'll do one that comes out on mobile and Switch. And it's just really funny that they're still doing that. I don't know why that's still funny to me, but it is still
It's
funny.
bizarre. It is bizarre, but I mean, hey, like they have a community. I want to, and this
They do.
I mean, they keep this game going. The game, it looks like the best farming simulator game. I
It is
will
the
say
FIFA
that
of farming games.
it
Yeah, for real.
it really is. So good for those people. I read through those updates and additions, and they mentioned crops. I don't even know what is sorghum. That's a new crop. Sorghum. Okay.
I have no
I don't know what
idea.
that is. You can
I
grow
have no
grapes and
idea.
olives too.
It's funny that they didn't. I find it funny they didn't have grapes up to this point. Olives, sure, they seem quite niche, but it's funny that they didn't have grapes. Dunno.
Yeah.
Gotta save that for the next game, like keep on your toes.
Yeah. Yeah.
2024 is around the bend.
They're also interestingly adding an AI helper.
Oh, that's
I wonder
pretty
what
cool,
that will
actually.
mean.
See,
Does it auto-generate crops?
See-
I don't know. They have not said anything about it. Just it's a thing.
I will say, like, for as much as almost a meme as it is in our corner here on this podcast, like, I think Farming Simulator does its job very well. I think some of these other games probably could take a few notes from them. Just again, like so many other things are very Stardew derivative. It'd be nice to see a little more emphasis on the actual farming, but that's just me. And apparently, sorghum is grown as cereals for human consumption, and in pastures for animals. Okay.
There you go.
So exciting. It's a less well-known grain in the world food bank.
Well, I'm sure their community is hyped over it.
It comes a distant fifth for most produced grains. I'm like, fifth? Fifth seems quite high to me, behind
Yeah, it
barley,
does.
rice, wheat, and corn. So it's above oats. It's
What?
more. It's produced more than oats.
What?
No
That's
way.
I didn't know
Well,
that. Oh,
Oats wasn't
see?
in that list, was it?
Farming Simulator does its job again here live on the podcast, educating us.
I need to
I
find
like
this
the
list
realistic
of
chickens.
most produced grains. You got to think. What's that? Soy must be pretty high, right?
I would think so. But yeah, did we say the date for that? May 23rd.
So we've got
Hey, I
corn.
get that. The
Corn is the top,
23.
then wheat, then rice, then barley, then sorghum, then oats, then rye.
Huh?
I don't see. Is soy not a grain? Is that what it is? Is this a pedantic thing?
It
I think
might
it is.
be. What is soy? So
It is not a grain. It is a
bean.
pulse. Oh my!
A what?
It's a legume.
You just got far.
Okay, legume. Okay, yes, I know legumes.
A
Yes,
legume, like a peanut. A peanut is a legume,
yeah, and other beans.
not a nut. Right. Moving on from the very niche conversation.
Wait,
We've got
I just
one
wanna
more
What do
point
you mean?
out-
I think this is more. I
What?
think this is more on topic than anything else we could possibly talk about.
We don't
This
talk
is
about
why we
real farming
changed-
here.
This is why we changed to cottagecore. No.
So the final piece of news is there's a new game that's just come out called Dawn Grown. And this, I'll just read the blurb for this one. A short adventure about healing people's inner worlds from corruption and confront emotions. In this refreshingly cute adventure about cleansing people's inner worlds of doubt and pain, you are Azure the Frog. Journey from the village floating in the sky to the minds of the afflicted as you cleanse their rich inner worlds from the dark ooze that corrupts them.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You can give your thoughts.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, like, looking at all of these trailers from indie developers, and I see their subscriber count at, like, 30, 47, 10. I'm like, oh, look at these guys. They're really working.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty common in our neck of the woods, too.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, that's part of this, what this podcast is for, right? Okay, so I have 3 things to say about this game. 1, the pixel art, very nice, very stylish. I like it. Reminds me of older Zelda games. 2, that said, the game cannot be as there's no way it could ever be as possibly cute as the like actual art of the frog, like little title art with him. That is a
Oh,
very cute
yes.
frog.
I thought the same thing.
Classic
The cover image.
Yeah, it's that frog is too cute, and I feel bad for them that they could never replicate that with pixels, and it's nothing against them. That's just a Herculean task. And 3, it's a novel, an interesting idea. It's basically Power Simulator, but like on a 2D plane. Or Power Washing Simulator. That's what I meant. You guys know what I meant.
I did.
Because, yeah, you're just spraying
I
water.
actually assumed you had said the whole sentence.
Yep. Yeah.
My mind filled in the gap.
Yeah, I'm sure it did for most people. But yeah, which is a cool idea. I don't know how the emotional stuff will work. I think this game might live or die by that.
Yeah.
But it's a cool idea. Power washing simulator. That game's going places. They're doing crossover with Final Fantasy. But Dawn
Yeah,
Grown.
that game looks very fun.
Yeah, Dawn Grown, and it's out now. It's only like what, $5? Yeah, $6 in the US at least. So that's very cute. This would be a good game for mobile, I think. I hope they can do that at some point. Buy the Steam game so
my
they
big
can get
question, my big question about this game is whether or not we get the stories of people, and if so, how good they are. And yeah, I think that could move it from this was fun to this is a great game.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's what I meant by it. It's gonna live or die by that. And we say people, but I don't actually see any humans. There's a one-eyed ghost named Bloco and a sun lady named Daemenia.
I mean, I guess this is. I'm assuming this is a Spiritfarer type thing where they're metaphors.
I guess maybe, I don't know.
Because it does say people. It says people.
How does
It
it?
says a short adventure about healing people's inner worlds.
Oh, huh. Oh, see, now I'm interested. If it is metaphorical.
I
What if
suspect
it's
it's
true or-
metaphorical.
Oh, see, we gotta hype this game up. Maybe we can get a crossover going with Spiritfarer at some point.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
So that's the news. We're now going to talk about our main topic, which is using cultures in video games. I am undecided as to whether it's using other people's cultures or whether it's just using cultures, because that's a complicated line.
Well, I mean, that's all the topic. It's all intertwined.
Yeah. So I guess I'll give a little bit of a summary of how we got here. So we had, for those who haven't listened to the previous episodes where we talked about this, we were talking about a game called Above Snakes, which is, firstly, important point, developed by a German person who I believe has no specific connection to any Native American cultures.
Name, have you seen this Above Snakes? Have you seen this stuff?
Not before being approached about this.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm
to
just
report
curious
on
because it's probably important for you to see this.
Yeah, I shared the link with him a couple weeks ago.
Okay, cool.
So
cool,
he's
cool.
he's not just jumping on him right now.
Okay. We do that
Whether
sometimes.
he read it or not is not my problem. So this game is a game set in the Wild West, and is the main character was and is using a lot of imagery from some North American cultures, and we brought up at the time that if this was just one person developing at that point and it was someone from Germany who wouldn't necessarily have the intimate knowledge that you would need to do this respectfully, that obviously we would want that to be done properly. And since then, he has released an update. He's updated a bunch of the imagery, which is an interesting thing that we can probably get into if we want to talk about that specifically. I don't know whether we do or not. And also talking about the things that he has done to understand these cultures better and talk to people who actually know rather than making lots of assumptions, because it looks like from what he said, he did make a lot of assumptions and got a lot of things wrong. Which is, I mean, understandable when you don't do it, but when you don't know and you didn't grow up in these cultures, right? Like, you can't know everything. But that's why it's important to do research and to talk to people who do know. So that's our kind of summary of how we got to this point. I thought it would be good to talk about these things. I'm not, I'm saying this is about using cultures in video games. I'm not expecting to come out of this with, here is what you need to do to respectfully use somebody else's culture in a video game.
That's what I'm here for.
That's not what we're doing here. We're here to talk about this. And I guess maybe before we get into the meat of it, maybe we should just have a quick summary of who we are, because obviously it's important to understand our backgrounds for this conversation. I am obviously, you can probably hear in my voice, a very white guy. I am Scottish. I have white everywhere. Like my entire family tree is basically white from different places in Europe. That's about it. So obviously I will try and not talk very much during this conversation.
Well, no, we need you to talk because this is where This is how we find out. We gotta wrestle with this.
You need me to say the embarrassing things, right?
Yes. All right. First
Kev,
thing,
do you want to talk about you?
I'd like to hear Name. Like this story
Okay.
was about the Native American stuff.
Well,
but
sure,
let's hear
sure.
his
I was gonna leave Nami for the end just because
Oh.
he's
Yeah.
newest, but that's fine. If we want to go in that order, that's fine.
Are we just?
Okay.
You want me to describe my background? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I didn't-
Yeah,
okay.
just background.
Yeah. All right. So for people who don't know, my family is from Mexico. I'm basically Mexican by culture and by blood. I'm first generation American technically. So I live in Atlanta, Georgia, in the South, and I've lived in Savannah, which is a much more quote unquote southern place. So I definitely experience this sort of racial culture clash, whatever you want to call it, on a day-to-day basis. In real life. So I definitely have many thoughts that are applicable for how this applies to media, right? It's not just video games, like media in general.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I have plenty of examples we can talk about. And obviously, like at least for people here in America, in the past few years, with the focus on racial issues here in America, like I've given all of this a lot more thought, and definitely have plenty of things to talk about. Go ahead, Nami.
Okay, well, as I said at the beginning, I kind of primarily identify as Native American, but I am a melting pot of a person. I am 1/4 Comanche. That is my paternal grandmother, my dad's mom, is full Comanche. I'm also a 4th Mexican. My paternal grandfather, my dad's dad, is full Mexican. And I'm half German, of all things.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom is full German, and her parents are both full Germans. So I'm technically, if you just look at the numbers, I'm more white than anything else. But I'm half white
Wow.
and half other.
What a surprise! I didn't.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, so much of these things are not necessarily your genes, but about
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
culture. and
No,
where you grew up.
no, of course,
You know?
of course not.
Yeah, and so I grew up in a very kind of just as I am a melting pot. I have a lot of traditions and things that I'm aware of on my radar from all of these different things. Like I am pretty familiar with like the Comanche powwow and all of that, but I'm also also fairly rooted in like just your regular basic white culture as well. So like there's a lot that I'll have on my radar as it were. And before we talk about the game and the culture and all this stuff, Kevin, when we first started recording, I sounded like you were going to ask me something about like about
yes,
like,
yes,
my,
yes, yes, yes.
my experience.
I think you mentioned something like, I didn't realize like you're like obviously Native American tribes have their own status as a nation or whatever, and I was curious if you get any sort of citizenship under that.
Yes. The Comanche Nation has their own government, or their own flag. We have elections and stuff like that. I just got something in the mail for another election coming up. They're based in Oklahoma. And, I have my own tribal ID. I have a number that's associated with me that they can identify me with. And it probably maybe the most important thing on that is it shows what percentage I am. You are able in the Comanche Nation to receive certain benefits and stuff like that by being an enrolled tribal member, and up until very recently, the most you could be in order to receive those benefits was 1/4, which is what I am.
Okay.
But there was a conversation, maybe 5 years ago, to lower that to 1/8 as I don't want to say the bloodline, but as these percentages get less and less common to be full,
Right.
and to be more and more closer to 1/8. To allow it to be 1/8 would let another, like our kids, another generation to just be included in these customs and these these great things that we want to share, but also with the prophets and the help get them in there to help make the decisions, as we go further along in life.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, because it is interesting because like the way that the United States, and I believe Canada has some similar things in terms of how they deal with the Native American tribes. The way that works is such a unique thing that, being European, I have only really learnt about in the last few years as I've actually tried to understand these things. It wasn't until a few years ago that I actually realized that the United States isn't everything within what we traditionally think of as the United States, right? Like, there are the tribal lands as well, which are a complicated status, shall we say?
Yeah.
And it's such a unique area that I think, America gets a lot of flack for a lot of things, and I'm not going to say that they did this perfectly. They absolutely did not. But it is a uniquely positive thing, I think. I mean, maybe it'd be interesting to get. I don't know. Are we here to talk about this? I don't know. I don't want this to balloon into like.
No, this is what I'm talking about. We need your perspective. So go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, you can make your point.
My point is just like, I think that there are very few things that we can look to the United States and say that is something that we should maybe think about in other areas, but I think we can, and like some countries are looking at that. Like, we've had Johnny on the podcast. He's talked a bit about how New Zealand is trying to deal with its
natives,
indigenous peoples. Yeah, that was the word. I was like, what's the word I'm looking for? Indigenous, and how the different cultures interact and how you respect everything there. And I'm not necessarily saying that the way that America has done it is right. Obviously, there are many cases where the American government has not got followed through on promises that they have made, shall we say. But it's an interesting way of doing things. And these things are very complicated, and what makes a person is very complicated. And I just find it really, really interesting because it is such a unique situation.
Now, in the interest of like representing accurately, I think all of what you said is valid, because there are cases like that with different tribes that the United States government comes in and provides a little something. But what I've said about like Comanches getting their benefits and stuff, that all comes from within the government of the Comanches themselves. We have go ahead.
Sorry, to clarify, what I was saying was about the agreements between the United States and the tribes in actually respecting their land.
Yes,
that was what I was referring to, not necessarily federal funds or anything like that. And as I mentioned, they have not followed through on all the promises, but the idea that there are areas within what people outside of the United States would think of as the United States that aren't technically United States, kind of that in and of itself is a unique thing that I think is important to think about.
Gotcha. I understand.
Okay, cool. So that's a lot of background for now what we're going to talk about, which is like, I have no idea how we're going to do this.
Well,
because I also don't.
Like I said, let's hear Name's thoughts on the whole above snakes thing. I think that's
before you do, what I want to say is I don't want this to be a, hey Nami, come on and tell us whether you think this is right or not. That's not what I don't think. I don't think we should be doing that. I don't think it's fair to Nami to say, judge this developer and tell us whether they've done enough.
Judge. I mean,
more.
I mean, judge if you want to, but like, I don't want to force you into that because it's complicated, right?
Sure.
Well, I just want to hear his thoughts. He has thoughts, right? So let's go for it.
So what are we doing then?
So yes,
I mean, I understand. Like, I'm all on board for that. So, but how are we dipping our toe into this conversation?
I probably should have thought about that.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, right, there's specific questions and then there's wider questions, and the wider questions.
You say you didn't bring him on to judge, but at the same time, like, I think that's what we need so people understand, like, what's cool, what's not, what was done well, what can be done better. I mean, I say, Nami, just go for it. Just start giving us your thoughts on the whole thing, what you saw, what you think.
Sure.
Go for it.
So this is definitely kind of an outside looking in, because I wasn't aware of this controversy until it was brought to my attention by you guys. but I do understand, like, oh, here it is. It's it's an outside developer. We don't need to say white necessarily because it could have been any group coming from another group.
Yeah, I mean, he is white, but yeah.
You know, right. Adapting a culture for the purposes of their game.
Yes.
The question is, right, there's probably two big questions that you can ask. One, was there any consultation with the group being represented? And we know that answer to be no. Maybe now it's a yes, but originally it was a no.
Yeah.
And two, how are they choosing to represent the culture within this game? So we've mentioned that we're going to be talking about Chia a little bit in this conversation, and comparing the two right now, the influence of the culture from, let me see the name of this of the country again.
And New Caledonia.
Caledonia. So New Caledonia, I mean, it's right in the name of the title of the game, right? They're saying this is what it is, and it seemed like down from the music to the like the imagery that they're using and stuff like that, they seem really dedicated to positively representing the culture. Now, compare that to what I'm seeing with the trailer from Above Snakes. Again, I'm only looking at this official gameplay trailer. It's just kind of like a costume that it's putting on. And I know that might be a charged word, but like we'd said, okay, here's the farming game that we would have, and now we're just going to cover it with like a coat of Native American paint for flavor. You know, like, are you using it for flavor, or are you using it because you believe in what you're representing? Those are the big questions when it comes to representing well. I'm going to turn to what some animated studios have done in a lot of their movies. For specifically, let's say Moana, the Disney movie, and this applies to different movies as well. But they assembled kind of a cultural table full of different people with different experiences that all identify as what's the word? But you know, the people that Moana's the Pacific Islanders, you know, and think people like that. They assembled a group and said, keep us in check. You know, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Like, is this reflecting how you guys want to be represented? And they did that similarly with movies like Coco. They did that with Raya and the Last Dragon, really like nestling into the culture and talking to them, having a dialogue. I think as long as you have good intentions and have a dialogue, you kind of avoid this putting on the Native American coat of paint kind of situation. Does that mean that there is a bad intention from the developer? Certainly not, right? But there is a difference between good intentions, bad intentions, and thoughtfulness and unthoughtfulness.
Yeah.
So that is my first impression.
I think that's totally fair. I did want to talk about Chia because I think that Chia is different, because I will note that the founders of the development company for Chia grew up in New Caledonia. So it is different.
Sure.
But one thing that I noticed in the first stuff I saw about it was that not everybody is from there, just the two founders, right? It's a development team in Montreal. But what the founders did was they took everyone to New Caledonia and kind of immersed them in that place. And so as someone who didn't grow up there, they cannot know everything. They cannot know what it was like to grow up there, but they can get a flavor of it. And they can meet people and they can see the place and they can figure out what is it like to be there at the very least. And I suspect having the founders being there and deciding the direction of the game is probably a big part of it. You know, it's completely different from someone being completely outside of that culture and then trying to figure out what you want, right? So there's always that person that developers can go to and say, what do you think about that? They don't need to go outside of the company for that. But I think that was my key question when we first saw Above Snakes was, I don't know whether this has been discussed with anybody, you know, and whether that dialogue has happened. It does now look like that dialogue has happened, but I think the key point is, I think this post proves that there wasn't the dialogue initially, because even just in the clothing that the main character was wearing, it seems like there were some, and I don't know whether this is like it could well be that this is different depending on which Native American tribe you're from, but it looks like there were some things that were kind of incorrect in how it would be traditionally used, in terms of, different clothing and different things on clothing and stuff like that.
One thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is when Native American characters, especially Native American women, are kind of portrayed as like these, like, I don't know, like Amazons. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that the character in this game is like hyper sexualized or anything, but like the way that the clothes are fitting and like the presentation of it, it's like, oh, look at the beautiful Native American woman. You know what I mean? That just kind of comes down to like how are you representing women in video games?
Oh yeah.
As well, and that's
intersectionality. We love it.
Huge conversation. Yeah, but yeah, that kind of thing kind of informs the attitude with the overall picture. Something to look at.
Yeah,
because as far as I can tell, just looking at these trailers, I mean, I could pull up different gameplay or even check out the game myself. That's the only or I don't, maybe not the only, but the main point of representation is in this one playable character.
Yeah,
I'm looking at these huts and these houses and these cottages, and that's just all kind of basic. Like your main point in the representation here is with that playable character.
Yeah, that is actually a thing. I don't think I've verbalized this before, but it was something I was kind of wondering: is this whitewashing things? Is this going to take what was a very difficult time in the history of North America, where we have these white settlers coming over and maybe European settlers, however you want to do it, right? Coming over and essentially taking over, right? Like we can dress it up however we want, but that's what they were doing. That was the entire point of it. That's what colonialism is taking over. And so I have not played the game. I know it's in, oh no, it's not in early access yet. It's just not out at all. You can't play it at all. But I there always has been a little bit in me of worrying of, is that going to whitewash things? Are we going to see any conflict, or are we just, is this the Wild West, but you just happen to be playing a Native American character that probably should be white based on how things are going in the historical?
I do recall seeing in the update when they discussed getting some, consulting with other people. They mentioned I don't know the character's name. The protagonist, she is actually half of the Native American culture and half colonist, I believe. So I think they are actually going to bring that up to the forefront. I don't know, like, to what degree or in what light, but I think
it sounds like they're meaning that metaphorically, I think. Oh no, so it does. All right, I'll read this. I'll just read this paragraph out because I found the paragraph you're talking about.
Thank you.
Over the past 2 years, we've noticed she is often mistaken as a fully native character when in actuality, is that meant to be, is it Ayana, do you think? Is that how it would be pronounced?
Probably.
Possibly. I don't know.
Is an individual that represents both the tribes of Above Snakes and its colonists. Ayana's father descends from a tribe, while her mother is a colonist from Corpse Creek. That's all we can say without spoiling it. As we are nearing the eventual full release of Above Snakes, it felt more important than ever to capture the essence of both in Ayana's design.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking as well. Like that could be, because they do say that it's not actually set in the Wild West. It's not set in America. It's set in a different place, a different thing that's kind of based on the Wild West. But that almost feels like a cop-out, right?
Yeah.
That just means that anything that we get wrong, we can just point to that and say, oh, but it's not.
It's like, oh, it's fantasy. It's not real.
Exactly. It's a difficult one.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that my gut reaction there is that it does make it a little worse. To not just commit and say, hey, yeah, this is a Native American coded character, and there's no middle ground. It seems like that it's like, oh, it's both, so that they can kind of have their cake and eat it too. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I might be looking at it a little more positively, thinking they're going to look at the themes of these conflicting forces, but it could also totally be a trash fire and like you're saying, just a cop out.
Well, that's the thing is it could be done. There could be a story.
Yes, because that's absolutely
actually does
a
things
big
well.
thing, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it does happen for sure.
That's.
I mean, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Even me, I'm like racially, I'm not split, but like culturally, growing up in one place and having, the family culture of another, like it's very much an important story and can be told well.
Yeah, I will say that, I'm being very careful about like how the optics of this, but personally, I'm not that offended by it, really at all.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this isn't like, necessarily meant to be a like, oh, I can't believe you've done this. You've offended all Native Americans, right? Like, that's not what we're trying to do.
Nobody's grabbing pitchforks. We're just trying to have a conversation about like how to best go about this, as opposed to this game needs to be canceled.
And as with every group of people, there will be people that disagree. Right, so there will be people in Name's exact position who completely disagree on it, and that's fine. Like these things are complicated, and people are people, and differences are differences. You will always find somebody who disagrees. So don't be coming at us saying, "Oh well, I know a Native American and they think it's fine." Yeah, sure, okay, that's fine. People have different opinions. That doesn't make what we've said wrong.
All right, so now let's try this from the other angle. Name, what would you like to see given this premise, situation here, right? Like, obviously the ideal thing would be, people of a certain tribe making the game or whatever, right? But like, given the current circumstance, what would you like to see in, let's just say, the specific example of Above Snakes?
Well, I don't think that it needs to have a Native American team or even one member on the team. I think that you are able to make a game like this, but like I said, are you having a dialogue with who you're representing? That needs to be important. Or at the very least, if the internet is not available to you and you cannot talk to anybody, can you at least do your research and represent? But I think that either from the story of the game or the gameplay of the game, you need to think, okay, if we're going to do this, how do we keep it just from being, like I keep saying, a coat of paint? How do we make this either integral to the story to where if you remove the Native American element or, apply your culture here, if you remove the element, is something lost? And if it's not lost, then that needs to be addressed. Just as anything in what you're creating, it becomes maybe forgive my brazenness, but a tool in your kit. By making something the best that it can be. That applies to to things in your game. It applies to like songs in a musical. If you take it out, is something lost? So, like I said, they need to either decide is the culture integral to the story of the game, or is it integral to the gameplay of the game, and then try to further integrate it in either of those choices, or both. If it's both.
Yeah, I think I think the interesting thing for me is like when you make a game and the playable character is a character rather than just the generic protagonist, you immediately have expectations on that.
Yep.
Because that character is meant to be a fully formed character. They have an identity.
Yep.
Whereas if you have a game where you have just generic protagonists that you design yourself, that completely changes it, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't think we know for certain, but I mean, from what they're saying, it does sound like you play as this character.
Yeah.
What was the name? Ayana.
Yep.
And there isn't choices around that, which is fine. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
I'm against that when all games are just generic white guy, right? Because then you're erasing things from a huge population of the world. I'm not against characters that you can't create yourself. But I think that when you do that, you are putting expectations on things. You are creating more work for yourself, and it becomes more difficult to be respectful. I also will say that you say you don't need to have someone on the team specifically, you need to have the dialogue. I would say that I think that the dialogue needs to be a business transaction. Someone needs to be getting paid for that, right? Don't just be getting people's free opinions on the internet. That's not fair.
Sure.
Pay them as consultants.
Yeah. Or at least come to an understanding about, like, to where both members of the party are satisfied.
To be,
like, if somebody is happy...
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, to be honest, I think, I honestly don't, I would rather have a better representation, even if it wasn't paid. Like, if people volunteered for it, I think I'd rather have that than
Yeah, it just feels like a cop-out to me. Like, there's always going to be someone who's, like, I think that people should be...
I mean...
I think that in this case, they should be required to have that dialogue, right? I think the developers should be having that dialogue.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, no, don't pay me. Like, I think they should be getting paid
I mean,
for this.
yes.
If you're
in an ideal world, right? But, like, I wouldn't like the above Nike's developer to say, I can't have that dialogue because I can't afford to pay it or whatever. Like, I would rather see that dialogue happen, even if it didn't get paid. But again, in the ideal world, yes, I'd like to be paid.
Say, just important to say that this is not a lone developer who has no money behind him anymore.
Sure.
Like, he has a massive team and he has a publisher behind him.
Okay, good point.
So I think that we don't have any money excuses.
Okay.
Excuse.
Okay. That's a good point.
And if anything else, if anything else, you can promise a percentage of the sales. Like,
sure.
Maybe you can be really generous with 15, or say, hey, this is what we can afford. We'll give you 5.
Yeah.
That kind.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, they have currently 10,000 people following them on Steam. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to pay them, right? But like the game Dawn Grove that we talked about, they have 100 people following them on Steam, right? So that's 100-fold difference there. Like, we're not talking about a tiny game that has no followers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I hope
they paid people.
Another question. Okay, this is more in general, not just above Snakes. Name, do you have successful examples of representations you like to point to, or like, this is how you do it, I enjoyed this, etc., etc.?
Well, I think I brought it up in a few minutes ago, but I'm looking at some movies specifically. Like, I think Moana,
right.
Like I said, I think Lilo and Stitch is a really strong representation of that culture and the people.
I guess was the question more around like cultures of your cultures sort of thing, rather than specifically in general.
Oh, well, heck. I mean, do you got 20 minutes for me to talk about Prey that came out last year? That was awesome.
Go for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that
Prey,
a
game? I'm talking about the Predator movie.
I haven't seen that yet. It's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah.
Though.
That was a movie about the Comanche tribe, and there's two cuts of that movie. There's the English track, and there's the Comanche full track.
I didn't know they did that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were all abuzz about it. There was like showings at our tribal complex. It was a big deal. We were very pleased. I have the star, Amber Midthunder. I have her autograph.
That's so cool.
Well, this definitely bumped up my list. It's been on my list for a while, but I've not done it. I just thought it was just I thought it was just a generic Predator.
No, I
sequel,
forgot about
no,
that. I knew the premise, but I totally forgot and didn't realize, like, oh man.
Yeah, it takes place like in the 1800s, etc. And yeah, it's about
this is 1700s, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Not important, right? Like, it's all in the past.
Right. Yeah, it takes place in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. It was really, that was a really strong, specifically of a Native American, specifically of me, of my people. That was a really strong case, and it was just a few months ago.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like,
she's a woman too.
I want to preface what I'm about to say with, I am obviously very white and very privileged in lots of ways, but being Scottish is an interesting one.
Yes.
In that a lot of things tend to be kind of like just bundled into like British or European at another level. And it was when Brave came out.
Yes.
That legitimately was so great to have like a fully Scottish, like a Scottish voice team, like built around Scottish folklore and all these things. And it was great to see that in like such a high well-known thing from us from Disney. It was a Pixar thing from
Yeah.
Pixar, right? Like that. And my point of this is just to say, like, I'm Scottish and I had that experience, and that kind
Yeah.
of gives me a vague, kind of small glimpse into what it must feel like when you finally start seeing your culture represented somewhere
Okay.
in a respectful and accurate way.
So 2 things. First of all, I laughed because I forgot Brave was the Pixar movie. I thought you were going to talk about Braveheart, the one with Mel Gibson.
Oh no, that Braveheart can get in the bin.
All right, but to your point, no, that's totally valid, Al, and yes, that's exactly, or well, that's pretty much the feeling, I think, and I think most people can relate to that, right? Because we're talking about race and culture here, but there's other bits that people relate to, like a location, right? New Yorkers care about how New York is represented, etc. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, like the representation matters in lots of different ways, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think I would hope most people can find something that they feel represented them well, or did represented a certain thing they care about themselves well. And yeah, no, that's a very good example. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, it was just something that kind of popped into my brain. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's important that we don't equate these things, right? Like, it's not the same thing.
Well, of course not, but it's the closest thing or one of the closest things. So it's very good to bring up. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is similar. I think that you can make an argument that you can equate the two.
I think so too. Yeah, no, I do.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, like I get you're dancing around it, but no, I think it's fair. It's a culture.
Well,
it's still a culture. It's not necessarily a racial thing, but it is a culture.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? And you
I'm not trying to equate what happened to Scottish people as what has happened to Native American people.
Of course. Yeah, well,
Like,
no, that's a whole
Yeah.
Scott
You're talking about the feeling of
Sure,
seeing
yeah.
representation. That's the thing
Exactly.
here, right?
Up on the
Like,
street.
it's different
Yeah,
experiences,
yeah.
but it's the act of the representation that's we can equate.
Absolutely.
Here. Yeah, no, oh man, I feel like we've gone on. There's so much I want to talk about here. Like I do want to bring up one, because this was just announced just like this past week. So Street Fighter 6, which has quite a history with racial representation. They actually announced a Native American Mexican character just this past week. Her name is Lily. She's a smaller girl.
Neat.
I am not. Well, I do have some Native American Mexican blood in me. I don't necessarily identify or have that culturally, but just looking at it, like here, I can post the picture for you guys to see. Like, oh man, this looks awesome. Just seeing a cool character. Again, who looks like me. Again, Mexicans come in all sorts of different shades, but yeah, who's clearly Mexican. They got the background that looks very Mexican, and this is even more specific. The Native American Mexican, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, that's fun.
And like at the same time, this also brings up a question of like Street Fighter characters also are kind of cartoony and almost caricature-y at times. And that's not always a bad thing necessarily. I mean, a lot of times, yes, it is. But like I look at this image I showed you guys with Lily, you see somebody with a sombrero in the back. Like, I don't know that I haven't been to Mexico in a hot minute, to be fair, but that, at least from my experiences, that isn't super common. But it's fun to see because it gets the message across. Right? Like Speedy Gonzales is another great example where that, an actual Looney Tunes cartoon, but he is so popular with Mexicans. Everyone loves him.
Yeah, they love him.
I think this is the thing is probably expectations are different. Yeah. So when Speedy Gonzales would have first debuted, right? Like that probably would have been like a massive thing, like a huge thing for representation, right? Even if it was highly exaggerated and all these things. Yeah. If that came out nowadays, I suspect it would probably be reacted to differently, shall we say? Because your expectations are different. When there's more representation, you're less accepting of the highly stereotypical stuff.
I don't know, because like, I mean, like I said, it can be a caricature at times. That's not inherently wrong. Like, I look at Speedy
No, no.
Gonzalez in a vacuum, right? Like, if he was released today, I, as a Mexican, I think I'd still like him and a big part of it is because, one, they're not negative stereotypes necessarily, and two, he's also the quote unquote winner of the Looney Tunes cartoons when he's outsmarting Sylvester and what all that, right? He goes fast,
true.
it's fun. He's a fun, dynamic character. So I think he would be popular still, even if he came out today.
I think it does depend, and I also think it depends on what your stereotypical culture is also normally shown as, right?
Sure.
So if we take for Speedy Gonzalez as an example, or if we take, say, for example, I can't remember his name, but there's like the big fat Scottish guy in Austin Powers.
I have not seen Austin Powers.
There's like a ridiculously over the top Scottish guy in Austin Powers who's like, "Oh, you're gonna get in my belly. I'm gonna eat you."
Okay.
And he's just like ridiculously, like obviously very, shall we say, not. Shall we say, yeah, a bit fatphobic, right?
Sure.
Okay, but if we ignore that bit of things, like really very stereotypically Scottish, and a lot of Scottish people love that sort of stereotypical Scottishness, and a lot of people really hate it.
Uh-huh.
But I suspect, like, if we look at how, for example, traditionally Native Americans would have been
Sure.
shown in media, it would tend to be a lot more like, like savage type thing,
Yes.
right?
Well, sure. Well, I was just referring
That
to
sort of stereotype. No.
Speedy as
Oh
an
no,
example,
absolutely.
but yeah.
Absolutely. I'm trying to more generalize it,
Yeah.
right? So like when your stereotypes are more negative,
Yeah.
like, oh, savage Native Americans or whatever, please do not clip that.
It's too late. They're coming for
Boy,
you.
that's
it
that's quite a
becomes
bold
a
title
lot
you
more-
picked there, Al, for the podcast.
It becomes a
Have to
lot
see what this is about.
it becomes a lot more problematic, right? And these things are it's just different depending on the context, as with everything.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, it's and like we mentioned earlier, it's going to depend by person, and there's a
course.
lot of nuance to it. That's hard to.
Here's an anecdote for you. There's a baseball team in the United States. They're now called the Cleveland Guardians, but for decades they were called the Cleveland Indians, and their mascot was, an Indian, a Native American, and they've had pressure on them for a long time to kind of cut that out, to stop it, to change their name. That being said, when they finally changed their name, members of my family drove up, I don't know how long the drive was, but several hours, to go see the Indians' last baseball game before the name change, because they were like, well, this was, something in baseball that had us on there, and now we're not going to be there anymore, and it's just going to be a blanket Guardians team. How do you even represent that? And they went to that final game, and they're like, well, this is the end of something. And it was kind of, I don't want to say a sadness, because it's not going to ruin their lives or anything, but they did go to mark the occasion of this thing. As problematic as it was still some form of representation that they
I mean, it's
So
a
who
little
knows?
bit it's a little bit sad in a way that problematic representation is like representation
Still means something to
representation can be so sparse
Oh
that
boy.
you hold on to anything how problematic it is. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, like
Yeah,
I
no.
absolutely get
No,
that, and it's complicated.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, that's a good example.
So anyway, video games.
No, I think it's important to talk about these things as well, because video games are not a vacuum.
No.
They intermingle with everything.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about all these things, because culture is what culture is, and we cannot talk about video games without talking about other
Yeah.
things.
Well, I mean, the episode's culture, right? That's the topic, not video games. It's culture.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh.
All right, are we done? Are we happy? Anything else that anybody really needs to talk
I
about?
think so.
I'm just want to say,
I-
we're talking about this, but at the same time, we're all Pokemon fans, and boy, what would it take to get them to do a little better with their culture? Oh dear.
Oh dear, yeah. Remember when you could like when they first brought character customization into Pokemon
Oh
games, you're
my
like, oh my word, and then
gosh.
your mum was always white.
Oh.
It was an ambiguous color.
I actually really like subtle representation as well. So there's a kids cartoon
Yeah.
in the UK called Hey Dougie,
Uh-huh.
and it's about this ridiculous character. He's like a dog, and he has like it's clearly based on like the Scouts,
Yeah.
but it's like younger kids. So he's got them there, and they're like do challenges every week, and they get a badge for it. Blah blah blah. But you see at the beginning of each episode, it's like you see them all arriving there like with their families,
Yeah.
and they're different animals. So like one of them is like a crocodile, one of them's an elephant, one of them's I can't even remember, but that's not important. The important thing is they all arrive with their parents, and one of them is a crocodile and arrives with, I think it's an elephant parent.
Uh-huh.
And so like that can be nothing else other than an adopted child, right?
Yep.
They never mention it. They never mention that this child is adopted, but
Oh,
it's
that's
so
cute.
clear when you think about it, and you're like, that is so good. Like the idea that you can so subtly add in representation for someone without making it a big song and dance. And there might be some kids out there who go, oh, that person doesn't look like their parents either. Like I'm represented in that small subtle way, and you can even do that in kids media. I think is really great.
Yeah.
Okay,
That was just kind of
congratulations.
a side thought.
Congratulations, gentlemen. We solved cultural representation in media.
That's it.
The
Close the book.
definitive word on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean that one isn't even cultural
No,
representation.
I know.
Right? It's just
I'm just in general. I'm just bookending.
yeah, it's just representation as a thing. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Nami, for joining us for your first episode. I hope I didn't stereotype you too much by bringing you on for a discussion about Native American culture.
That's okay. I forced
It's
myself
okay.
in.
My check is in the mail.
It's kind of pleasing to me. I didn't realize that you were half German as well. It's very pleasing to me that we got you on an episode to talk about a German developer making a Native American game.
Oh goodness.
That was not lost on me.
goodness.
My eyebrow raised. I was like, oh, look at that.
What are the chances? Amazing. And
Yeah.
thank you, Kevin, for joining me as well.
Thank you, Al.
Nami, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they do that?
If you just want to see what I'm up to, you can go to my Twitter at Name the Nerd. And if you want to join my my quest for the Battle Frontier and Emerald, you can tune into my Twitch at Name the Nerd. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Nice. I thought you were going to say if you want to join in my quest and do it as well, and I was like, I do not. I definitely do not. Join you on Twitch. I might do
Please.
that a couple times. Yeah. The awkward thing of being in Europe is, of course, most Americans tend to stream when I'm in bed, but occasionally I get to catch some people. Kevin, where can people find you on the internet?
At Koopa Prez on Twitter. I mostly retweet things there. That's all that really matters right now. Unless you want to give me more call-outs on the Slack, on the THS Slack, which you can join by joining Patreon at, well, it's the Harvest is on Patreon, isn't it? There's a link. I don't remember what it is.
It's THS Pod
There you go.
on Patreon. But yes, there are links to that and everything else related to this podcast on the website harvestseason.club. I should have mentioned this at the top, but we are going to be doing transcripts for the podcast now.
Yay.
So if you've made it this far through without knowing there's a transcript but needing a transcript, impressive. So they should just be in the show notes after all the notes. There should be a transcript there if you need it. I believe some podcast apps are starting to integrate them into with a specific tag, but it's not very widespread yet.
Yeah.
So I haven't integrated that yet,
Right.
but it's on my to-do list.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. We did have transcripts that were originally written down by Rochelle when we started, but it turns out that was a lot of work, so she stopped doing that.
That sounds, yeah, that sounds hard.
Whereas
Especially with an episode like this.
well, yeah. Oh man. Whereas now I get my computer to do it, so I have finally figured out a reproducible, free way to get my transcripts.
Yay.
Up. So I'm going to start that hopefully from this week. I haven't decided which one is the best one to use yet, but there we go.
Yay. If you do join the Patreon, you can gain access to the Slack where it has been growing, and we
Oh,
get
yes.
fun conversations about the episodes, and you can talk and make fun of me, as Johnny, and I'll always. I'm just kidding. But also you can add access to our premium podcast called The Greenhouse. In
I'm not sure. Should we call it premium?
yes.
Extra. Let's just call it extra.
No, I think that's the good stuff. And near some point in the very near future, we're gonna talk about our predictions for Pokemon
past.
Day. Yay!
It should be the past. It should already be out.
Is it? It's I don't know.
I think that already came out. You could go listen to it right now.
I'm not promising that it's going to be out on Monday, but I will try my hardest to get it out on Monday.
Well, I mean, regardless,
So it should be out already.
we're gonna be dead wrong about everything. So go listen to how wrong we were.
We will probably do another one in a week or two talking about what actually happened.
And how wrong we were.
I'm not sure exactly who'll be on that
I
one,
don't.
but there we are.
Luckily, what's nice about the schedules, we can just do it whenever with whoever now. We're we.
Yep.
Alrighty, that's
Great.
it. Wait, more?
I think that's everything. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, you two, for joining me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Sue.
And until next time, have a good,
Have a good
harvest.
Good. Yeah, go harvesting. Yay.
Kevin always got to be difficult.
I do.
The Harvest Season is created by Al McKinley, with support from our patrons, including our pro farmers, Kevin and Stuart. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode.
I should also mention that one of my top goals when discussing anything race is to make everyone uncomfortable. I mean, I won't lie, like, especially white people. I'm sorry, Al, but